Hello, I'm John Evans. I'm a professor in the Plant Sciences Division at the Research School of Biology here at the Australian National University. And today I want to give you a little video clip about some issues concerning water use efficiency in crops, which is the topic of the hackathon this year. I've only got 5 minutes to do this, so I have only a few slides, and I'm going to concentrate on some examples of greenhouse design. But initially, we need to just go through some basic principles. Illustrated in this slide initially is an aerial view of the border between the USA and Mexico, showing irrigation of the desert, allowing crops to be grown when irrigation is supplied. And a little bit further south in Mexico, the irrigation water is used to grow very productive wheat crops. In controlled environments, such as glass houses, which are widely used in horticulture, here we have tomatoes being grown in Wageningen. But let's start with the basics. So there are 3 slides just to introduce the general principles associated with the water loss and the energy balance associated with that. So here we have a leaf, typically in sunlight to drive photosynthesis. We are receiving energy from the sunlight, and that energy has to be dissipated, principally through 2 pathways: convection, which is called sensible heat, or evaporation or transpiration, which is called latent heat. And the proportion of heat that is dissipated in either direction varies depending on the condition. And the consequence is this will determine what the leaf temperature is. So the second concept we need to revisit is the saturation vapor pressure curve. Here we have a graph showing increasing temperature on the x-axis and the saturation water vapor pressure on the y-axis. This shows how much water vapor can be held in air at a given temperature. And typically a leaf is assumed to be saturated with water vapor in its intercellular air spaces at its leaf temperature. So a leaf at 25 degrees will have this much water vapor in the intercellular air spaces. Now, air is very rarely 100% humid, and so air typically, if it was 50% relative humidity, would be sitting at this point. And so there is a gradient in water vapor pressure from inside the leaf to outside, and this is referred to as the leaf-to-air vapor pressure difference. And it is that gradient that drives transpiration. Also, if you have very humid air and cool it, at some point you'll hit this curve at the point you reach there, you'll get condensation forming and water vapor will drop out of the air and return to a liquid state. Now, in terms of gas exchange, here we have a cross-section of a leaf, the epidermis being viewed from above, half a stomatal pore through which the gases diffuse in and out of the leaf air spaces to the atmosphere. And then here we have the mesophyll containing chloroplasts where photosynthesis occurs. So there are 2 main fluxes we're concerned with for water use efficiency. Firstly, water vapor saturated in the intercellular air spaces diffuses out through stomata to reach the atmosphere. This is transpiration. And those stomata are open in order for the plant to gain carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by diffusion into the intercellular spaces. Now, from Fick's law, we can write these fluxes. The assimilation rate of CO2 is given by the product of conductance and the CO2 partial pressure gradient. And the transpiration flux is given by the conductance multiplied by the vapor pressure gradient. And if we take the ratio, that is how much carbon is gained for water transpired, we can simplify the equation to here. And that depends on the CO2 gradient and the vapor pressure difference. All right, so let's have 2 examples. Here we have a cool house. And this house can be set up with a wall which allows air to pass through it. And we moisten this wall by adding water. And evaporation, as the air moves through, cools the hot, dry air and produces cool or moist air inside the greenhouse. So this has a direct effect on the water use efficiency. Firstly, we increase WA, and the cooler temperature means that the leaf temperature potentially is cooler. So this difference becomes smaller, and as a result, we get more photosynthesis per unit of water transpired. This setup can be used with brackish water providing the water for the evaporative cooling, and through the evaporation, it gets concentrated and we produce brine, which has potential uses. The second example is a hothouse, where we restrict ventilation, and as a result, the inside space of this greenhouse becomes very hot and humid. The hot and the humidity is arising because of transpiration. This hot, humid air basically condenses on the surface of the greenhouse because you exceed the saturation vapor pressure, and the condensed water runs down the sides and can be collected as a source of fresh water. The inside of this hothouse is hot because energy is coming in from sunlight. We restrict the ventilation, which causes very high humidity. And because of the restricted ventilation, we'll probably need to add carbon dioxide to drive photosynthesis and growth. And one of the downsides of this, of course, is the high humidity means that fungal diseases can be a problem. So I wish you good luck in your hackathon.